Hello folks, you're listening to episode 21 of your favourite sports betting podcast, A Mug's Game. And here are your hosts, Smeg and Ronnie. That's right, the man, the myth, the legend is back. Ronnie is back to cover the European Championships with us. It's been quite a while, but we're delighted to have him back because at the end of the day, this podcast is a project that myself and Ronnie spawned out of a stag that we were at a few years ago. I think it was early 2018, and we've went from strength to strength since then. But it's just great to have you back, Ronnie. How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to the Euros now. You've kept the flag flying for the podcast in the last few months with some ones on the Grand Slams and the tennis. So we're halfway through the French Open now. How's it going?
Yeah, going very well actually so far. Obviously, we had some very good wins in the match betting. The Gracheva and Sharma, and I think Fucsovic minus a 6.5 with some of the bigger bets that came in, and a few disappointments there. Korda didn't back up he was looking great in the pre-tournament. In I think it was Parma, he won that tournament, and then he just didn't back up that win. Maybe sometimes young players can have letdowns after winning their first tournaments. He didn't back up the win against Martinez, and of course we made him. I think our streak of parlay wins at the first round of slams is over as well because Rublev let us down. He lost to Struff. I would think that was a mistake on my part. Struff is a dangerous opponent, and maybe his best surface isn't the clay, but. Look, I probably shouldn't have underestimated him, but overall very good. And I have to say the quarter betting is going very well at the moment. Tsitsipas is flying through the draw. He was the kind of the big bet at evens in the men's, and then most of my other bets were in the women's. We have Kenin in the fourth round of 40-1. Once she goes deep into a slam, she becomes very dangerous, as we saw last year when she got to the final of the French. Then we have, of course, Rybakina at 33-1. She's playing Serena next. Serena's actually surprisingly playing some very good stuff on the clay, but look, it's a good chance there. The best chance is actually Stevens and Krejcikova, because we have Stevens at 80-1 and Krejcikova at 100-1 to win that quarter. And I think it's quarter three. If I'm right, quarter three quarter one there. Yeah. And they're both. One of them is going to be in the quarterfinals. So and against a very worst case scenario, Coco Gauff, so it'll be a very coverable price. And finally, Van der Truff at 66-1 is flying the flag for us in the fourth quarter. A little bit annoyed that Kudermetova has let us down at 33-1. Went from 5-1 up against Siniakova, but all in all brilliant prices in very, very promising positions. Yeah. So we'll find out how to get on next week, but we're not here to talk about the tennis now. We're here to talk about, of course, the European Championships. And the first question I'll ask you, Ronnie, is basically, we think of I suppose not just from the sports betting point of view, but from the actual sporting event point of view, why do you think we should really be looking forward to these European Championships?
Yeah, well, I suppose first of all, with the crowds having returned from, we didn't really think it would be the case maybe 2 months ago, watching games in February and March, and they were starting to get dull a bit, a few less goals and so on, but the Champions League fine, Europa League fine, those fans at those games, even the FA Cup fine made a nice difference, and now we've got 11 different stadiums with different levels of different size of crowds going at games, even up to Hungary, who was having a full capacity in their stadium. Otherwise you've got 20 to 50% at games. I think that'll help. And I suppose the second thing as well is that we've so many of the top nations who are better than they were, say, at the last Euros 5 years ago. A lot better actually in a lot of cases. That Euros 5 years ago was won by Portugal. They beat France 1-0 they kind of dogged out the whole tournament really there. But I think if you look at the market, there's 7 teams which are 12-1 or less, and I think a lot of those 4 or 5 of those 7 are better than they were at the last couple of tournaments. So hopefully we have a good tournament. We haven't had a really good Euros in a good while, maybe going back to Euro 2000. So I'm hopeful that we'll have a good few weeks ahead. Yeah,
it certainly does seem quite open, but of course we'll talk about our 2018 World Cup winners. France, I mean, obviously they had bounced back from their loss in that final in 2016, so they've been to a European final in 2016, they've won the World Cup in 2018, so What do you think are the chances of France backing up that World Cup win of 2018 and this European Champions?
Yeah, well, if they were to do it, there'd have to be a special team. It's happened twice in our lifetime where actually France won the Euros after winning World Cup 98, they won Euro 2000, and of course that great Spanish team did it in 2012. They backed up the World Cup win in 10. I know they won the Euros in 08 as well. So it's happened twice, and Deschamps actually would be the first man. He did it as a player, the first man to do it as a manager as well. So they've definitely can go down in history. I think they are 5-1 with most firms, and I think that's fair. I think they have the best squad there for sure, and they're in the group with Germany and Portugal and Hungary, so it's a real good group, or tough group I should say, but good matches ahead there. And I suppose the big one is Benzema come back into the squad. Anyone would have said maybe their weakness is that they don't have a number 9 goal scorer. Like Giroud did fine, we know what he can do, but Benzema come back in is just really.
And he's played some decent stuff this year as well.
He's had a great season. I think he's just one of his highest scoring seasons. Yeah, he's had a great season. Even the other night there against Wales, he was coming. I think he's going to Mbappe's going to play with him kind of thing, and he can set up goals as well as score them. Whereas Giroud, you wouldn't rely on him as much for the goals. So I think with him coming back into it, they don't seem to have any major injuries at the moment. You're looking at midfield, Kante, Pogba, Rabiot, and then you've got Griezmann, Mbappe, and Benzema front. Really, really strong.
And in defence,
yeah, really, you've got Varane and Kimpembe of PSG, 2 centre halves. You got Lucas Hernandez left back, who's brilliant. He's brilliant centre half, Munich, and then the right back Pavard and Lloris in goal. Probably, if you want to take it, if there is a weakness there, But they've so much on the bench as well with Dembele, Coman, Giroud, Sissoko. These lads, they're well stocked. And
regarding the run up, obviously you look at that group with Portugal and Germany, and you think, oh, geez, one of them has to go, but then all 3 of them can actually qualify. This is the thing.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. So you've got 6, to remind people what it is. It's 6 groups of four. So you've got 6 groups of 4, 24 teams. That 24 just turns into 16. So nearly the group stage is about knocking out 8 teams rather than the 16 go through in some ways. So yeah, if 4 of the best 6 third place teams qualify. So in that group, you'd fancy all of them to beat Hungary, so they'll have 3 points on the board then anyway. And 3 points could be enough to get you through. 4 definitely would be, So even
you'd imagine that there'd be at least they'll all beat Hungary, and then there'll at least be another draw between one or the other 2 teams.
Exactly,
that's enough.
Yeah, and that's enough. And then they can't meet each other really for a while then as well. So.
Yes,
played each other in that group, so it can open up nicely after that. But yeah, the French team is they definitely have I definitely have them as the favourites. Definitely,
are you going to? Does that mean that you're going to be staking a bet on them?
I will. I'm staking. They're my main outright bet. Yeah, as I said, with the strength they have, I'm having 3 points in France. They're 5-1 general. They could shorten even in the next week or so, I think. But I'd have 3 points on France at 5-1 to back up the World Cup win. I think they're better than they were 3 years ago at that World Cup. I think they're better, and Mbappe's a couple of years older. He's a better player. You have Benzema coming in, Kante, Pogba, and they're prime at the moment.
Kante is back playing the sort of football that he was playing a few years ago.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he got man of the match in 3 or 4 of the last 4 or 5 big games he played.
He's just been unbelievable. Yeah.
And
then they're solid at the back as well. As they say, it's sometimes we can fall into the sort of punters can fall into the fallacy of composition, where we might look at certain players. Like I did this myself when I tipped up Uruguay. I think at 25 in the World Cup. I was looking at the type. They've got Cavani. They've got the. Of course Suarez, and they've got Gordon at the back, but I didn't factor into the fact that they had no creativity in midfield. So just because you've got some superstars in your team doesn't mean that as a whole the team is a great team. But with France, they're just so strong across the board. That it's just
that's exactly it. Yeah. And that Griezmann and Pogba creativity, and you said about defence, it goes under the radar. But you look when Portugal won 16 and when Spain won in 12, they barely conceded a goal in the knockout stages. You have to have that in you as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think even with Kante playing in front of any defence, and Deschamps as manager, he's known for that, being quite defensive, and it's actually a good thing for them. They need to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, really I'm
brilliant stuff. So
both
if that came true, that would obviously be a 15 point win, and it's, look, at the end of the day, 5-1, considering how strong they are. Of course, there are other strong teams, and in a knockout competition, when the likelihood of penalties, and there's always, you have to take that into account. But of course, like 5-1, being as strong as they are, it doesn't look like a bad bet to me at all. Before I move on, well, I suppose we just have to take into account, we have the odds up here, and it's a long time. It seems like a very long time since I've seen England as touching on favourites or second favourites in a tournament. There seems to be an awful lot of hype about this England team. And I suppose my question to you, someone who's been following them very closely, do you think this the hype is justified, or do you think that this England team, that those sort of odds are justified on them?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's the shortest odds they've been for a tournament since actually 2006. Remember the 2006 World Cup in Germany? They were actually second favourites for that tournament. The one where they went out to Portugal on penalties, Rooney, Ronaldo. They were actually second favourites. Hype had gone into overdrive there, but they are. I think they're 4-1. They were 4-1 during the week, even 5-1. I think it's a really, really sharp price. They're definitely the best English squad in the last 10 years or so. Definitely, attacking wise for sure. Definitely is with. What Foden and Mount have done at a European level with their clubs, and with, Rashford could turn up and have a good tournament. You've got Kane with, relentless amount of goals. You've got Sancho there. They've got so much options, but they can't play them all anyway, But no, you can see that's where it's coming from. It's coming from their from the attacking players they have, and you can't.
And to be fair, even like if you look at the Champions League final, I felt myself like the players that did shine even for City, where I thought Foden was actually quite good. I know like some people were saying that on the day the attacking City players sort of didn't show up, but I actually was quite impressed with him, and he was obviously brilliant in the semi-finals. Mount obviously with the true ball. I know you're a big fan of Mount yourself. My question, I suppose, where do you see the weakness in the team? Like? Yeah,
well, that's why I think 4 or 5-1 is far too sharp, because I think their weaknesses are too obvious. First of all, centre halves. Maguire isn't fit. I don't think, it doesn't sound like he will be either for the first couple of games. So you're down to Stones and maybe Tyrone Mings, Connor Cody, Walker. I wouldn't rate Mings at all for this level. Maguire, even if Maguire does come back fit, it takes him time to get properly fit. He could be, you look at Stones or this year, he had a good year, but I think Ruben Dias really was so beside him. So I think it's a huge weakness. I think centre midfielders as well. Another one there with Henderson is not fully fit. I think they're skimpy enough numbers wise there.
Who do you think will be starting?
Rice will start, and I'd probably start Bellingham beside him. He's that good. Otherwise, Calvin Phillips is there, and Mount can play a little bit deeper, but they're a little bit. They're not. I question them there yet. I'd question them there on their ability to keep the ball there, and I just think when they play elite opposition as well over the last couple of years, the World Cup 18, they got a lot of praise for reaching semi-final, but at the end of the day, it just opened up for them. They beat Sweden alright, but they beat Colombia in penalties. They lost to Belgium in that tournament twice. They lost to Croatia in the semi-final, and even since then under Southgate, they've lost when they play the best teams. They lost to Holland last year in the Nations League. If they win the group,
of course, the Southgate. You don't rate Southgate as a manager. The Southgate factor, the fact, where does the quality of your manager come in a tournament like this? Of course, I know he brought them to the semi-final in the World Cup, but again, it was, they had such an easy draw.
They had Panama in their group. They just, I think they're unproven to justify the odds that they're at, and I think the question marks over Henderson and Maguire, and sure Pickford as a goalkeeper as well. It's another serious potential weakness as well. I just think. But the main thing is, Meg, I think they'll come out of the group. I do think they'll come out of the group. If they top their group, they play the team that runners up in the France, Portugal, Germany group. So they've got a last 16 game against one of the best teams, and at the moment I wouldn't trust them to beat one of the top teams, even at Wembley. So I think they've got a hard road ahead of them, and 4 or 5-1 is just too short.
That's fair enough, I suppose. We'll Talk us through the other the big teams. We got Belgium, Germany, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and I suppose maybe Netherlands. Well, if you got anything to say,
they're in the top 7. I think I think Belgium should go well. I think if De Bruyne is okay, they're definitely there's probably a narrative out there that they might be their last chance or they've missed the voting, but I don't think so. I think they're still at a good age, and they have the likes of Tielemans in the side now as well, who's had a great season for Leicester. They're still they are a very good team. Maybe Vertonghen and Alderweireld at the back, maybe not as good as they were, but I can see why they're third favourites. Germany and Spain again, both they don't look like they're tournament winners to me, but they could. They both got real strong midfield still and could do okay.
I just want to say one thing about Belgium is you could argue that, say, maybe Hazard isn't quite the player he was. And as you say, the central defence pairing, I'd say in some ways you could argue maybe 2018 was maybe their golden chance.
Maybe so.
Like, I even feel like De Bruyne, I love De Bruyne, what a footballer he is, but even in that final before he got injured, there's times when he seemed a bit slow to me, it just and it was a high paced match. Now still, look, I'm not going to read in too much into it, but is he maybe on the decline? I don't know. Maybe that's too harsh. But and then again with Germany, look, in fairness, as you said, the midfield is good, but Sané actually played some good stuff this season as well, and it's,
they're probably lacking a real number 9 as well. They might do what Chelsea did and just play Havertz up there, but they got a great midfield with Kimmich, Gundogan and Kroos there. They have they're playing their home games as well. Like England, they're playing their 3 games in Munich actually in the group, which is actually which is good for them. But otherwise than that, you've got I suppose Portugal, Italy and Holland come into that, the top 7 teams I suppose on that list. Holland would be the ones I'd least like in that, and I think they're
no Van Dijk, of course.
No Van Dijk. Frank de Boer is there as well, a really poor track record, and his results since he came in taking over Koeman are really bad. I saw him get Turkey hammered him actually there a couple of months ago, and I just think they are in a soft group. It's probably a soft group, so it's hard to get a way of really opposing, but I don't see him going all the way. Portugal definitely justify their odds. They're with the squad they have, the amount of players they have that are playing well for their clubs. I wouldn't turn off anyone off Portugal. The one team that interests me in that list is the other one, apart from doing France obviously, is Italy, who are actually 11-1 with most firms. Basically everyone except Paddy Power actually have them as short as 8s, but Italy are 11-1 with most, and I think that's not a bad bet. That's not a bad bet at all.
Talk me through it.
With Italy, well, they missed out in the last World Cup, and I suppose they have Mancini come in then as manager, and they've just gone on a great run. They haven't been playing great teams, but they've pissed through their qualifying and even the World Cup matches lately. I think they're unbeaten in 30-something matches. They have. Now you always talk about the draw for the Grand Slams and the map ahead. It's not as easy to do it in a soccer tournament, especially with third place teams coming. But there is a good chance that Italy are on the right side of the draw if there is such a thing. If they can top their group, which has Turkey, Wales and Switzerland, they could be in a quarter or semi very, very quickly, so they haven't. Why?
Who would they be?
Well, if they top the group, they're probably looks like they'd be playing Ukraine or Austria or maybe Holland even, who would be a good. That you're looking at a second team from that group, So it's
personnel wise though, who has because we are talking about a team who couldn't make it to the last World Cup, and who did decline even from the Euros 2016. Ireland beat them, in the group stages, and obviously they rested some players. But how have they improved personnel wise in your view in the last few years? It's not just about
Mancini. Well, it's not improved. They still have Chiellini and Bonucci giving it one more go at the back with Donnarumma behind them in goal. They have midfield. Verratti's had in great form. The one question about him is he's actually injured for the last 4 weeks, but he's expected to be back fit in another week or so. Verratti, Jorginho and Barella had a great season in Inter Milan, brilliant player. He's the big one in midfield. Those 3 midfield. Immobile, has had an unbelievable couple of seasons, and I suppose we're waiting for him. Will he actually do it for Italy at a tournament, which hasn't happened yet? But he'd be probably the central striker with Chiesa, who looked very good for Juventus in the Champions League on one side, Insigne then on the other side. Come back to what you said, maybe lacking that centre attacking kind of 10 for creativity. But I think they have lots of other little things. And under Mancini, I think they could be very hard to beat. I think they could be hard to beat, and I just think, with the side of the draw they're potentially on, I think 11-1 is worth 1 point. I'm going to have 1 point on Italy, just straight. I'm going to have 1 point straight in Italy, 11-1.
Okay, good stuff there. So, like, will we talk maybe a little bit about talking through the group stages? Obviously, we have. Is there any group that stands out to you, and any bet from the group market that stands out to you, or maybe you have a few? Yeah,
perfect. Well, just going through the groups, we just mentioned that one there: Italy, Switzerland, Turkey, Wales. Very tough group. Switzerland, Turkey, Wales. It's going to be tight there for they all could take points off each other. Turkey, Italy is the opening game actually Friday night. It'd be good to see. Turkey have had good results lately in World Cup qualifying and so on, so we'll see what happens there, but no actual group bet on that. The second group is one we touched on. Belgium there. Belgium are in with Denmark, Finland and Russia. There's one team there, is Denmark, where I'm going to actually have a bet on them, siding with them for the tournament. I think it was you I mentioned last month. If you look at the clubs their players are playing for at the moment, it's not surprising to see how good the results are. They were very good at World Cup 18. Just went out narrowly. Penalties on Croatia.
That's right.
Penalties.
Yeah, that's right.
They were good, but since then, they hammered Ireland to go into the playoff for that. But since then, they've Schmeichel in goal. They have two centre halves, Christensen of Chelsea and Kerr at Milan. They have Højbjerg and Delaney in the midfield, real solid players. Eriksen's had a good last few months for Inter Milan. Braithwaite of Barcelona on one wing as well. They are, again, they're missing a real top number 9. They probably have a guy from Copenhagen up there, Wind is his name, but they're having good results lately. I think a lot of their players are playing for a good team. I think they'll get out of that group with Belgium. And
you rate Russia?
Russia, no, I wouldn't. They had a decent World Cup on home side in the World Cup 18, but no, I don't think they're any better than they were in that case. I think Denmark will come out with that Denmark are also playing all their games in Copenhagen, which is one of the smaller stadiums, but they're hoping to have maybe up to 50% capacity, so it should actually be an advantage to them. I think it's under 40s,
and it's not inconceivable that they'd actually could top that group. Like they could get a result against Belgium.
They could. That's one of my bets. I'm having 1 point on Denmark. There's always some sort of a dark horse to get Wales in 16. Czech Republic getting to 96 final. I know obviously the obvious one is Greece winning it, but I'm not saying they'll win the tournament, but I think they could get a run.
And traditionally, like Denmark, I don't know, it's in the psyche area, but traditionally they have always kind of turned up for the big tournaments anyway. That they are going right back down to Laudrup's time.
The one of them, Euro 92 was the big one.
Yeah.
But no, I think that there could be a last four kind of dark horse team. So I'm having 1 point on them to reach the semis, and that's at 5-1, and that's with Boyles.
Boyles Sports, brilliant stuff, great stuff.
5-1.
And so regarding, there's another group that stood out to me. Obviously, is sort of like the group of death for Hungary anyway. That's for sure. But it's Group F. You have Portugal, France, Germany, and Hungary in there. And have you any thoughts about the market on that group?
Yeah, well, the market on the group is even though France are favourites for the tournament, Germany are actually favourites to top the group, which it looked weird we look at it first, but it's because Germany are playing all their games at home. Germany are playing their 3 games at home. Hungary play 2 games at home. So Portugal and France are always playing away from home, obviously. So that's why Germany are favourites for it. I think France are the best team there. Germany, Portugal. It's hard to know who win the games, but I suppose value-wise, Portugal are actually 7-2 with a lot of firms to top the group. And in a 3-horse race, Portugal play Hungary first, which is another good thing, as in they'll have their 3 points on the board. After the first round they will be probably top of the group. And I just think 7-2 is a little bit is good value for Portugal. That's with Bet365 and a couple other firms. I think it's I think because there's not that much difference between.
Can I ask you who's going to be playing beside Diaz in defence?
Pepe probably, still 38-year-old Pepe. He played well actually for Porto against Juventus, and Pepe or Fonte, but probably Pepe. probably Pepe.
Of course, they did win the Euros with Fonte at the back.
No, they are better than one of the Euros. If you look at the obvious ones up front where they've got still Ronaldo, obviously they've got Jota, Bruno, Bernardo Silva. They can't. One of them is not going to probably play. So.
Which one do you think? No, because I was just thinking. I was looking at the goal scorer market, and there was someone that stood out to me. Who out of those? Who do you think will not be starting?
And João Felix is there as well.
João Felix,
Felix mightn't get in, and they might play Silva, Bruno, and Jota just behind Ronaldo. Could get him in that way.
Yeah.
Midfield probably isn't. It's the couple of the Wolves guys, Neves and Moutinho. Decent, but maybe not as good as the French one or maybe the German one. But they've certainly got a brilliant attack. They got Cancelo at full back as well, who had a great season for City. And Diaz, you mentioned, they are better than when they won it 5 years ago, and they've got the same manager who's a great man, Santos, brilliant knockout record.
He's the manager until they get to the final, and then Ronaldo usually takes over them.
That's it. So Ronaldo, but I think they are, even though France back, I think they're a good bet for that group just because the price 72 is. So I'm going to have 1 point to Portugal top group. 72.
That's fair enough to me. I'd like to be honest with you. When I was looking, I was doing my research. Obviously, I haven't not been absolutely up to me neck in the tennis, but when I was doing my research last night, Portugal did stand out to me. Although there is an aspect of it, it sort of reminds me a little bit of my Uruguay. Good, some good defence, and then lacking a bit of creativity in the midfield. But they're good. The Wolves guys are, I suppose.
Yeah, and Bruno has that if he plays.
And Bruno, of course. Sure. Look, how could you forget Bruno? But so look, regarding, is there anything else you want to say about the groups? Is there any other plans out there from the betting point of view?
Well, come into that. Obviously Hungary are obviously the worst team in that group, and even though they're playing two of their games at home, they're actually missing one of their best attackers is out of the tournament as well. So I'm actually going to link that up with Group E, which has the Spain, Poland, Sweden, Slovakia group, and the weakest team in that group is Slovakia. We saw them play Ireland. Unfortunately, in the playoff game, which they won in penalties, Ireland were actually the better side, and who were missing so on. Slovakia are a really poor side. The best players.
Anytime you have a team, an international team, who is actually getting outplayed from a football point of view by Ireland, you're usually looking at some team that are not very poor side. Yeah,
and again, with the group, it's they've got Sweden, Spain, Poland. I think Slovakia and Hungary are. There's a nice bet. There's some great power prices out there. Lots of them there to look through for the Euros. And one that I've picked out is it's a 50-1 double actually. 50-1, 5-0. Slovakia and Hungary to not score in the tournament. They're both played 3 matches. So Slovakia in that group I mentioned, and Hungary in the France, Germany, Portugal group. Both of them to not score is 50-1 with powers, and I'm having a half point on that.
Yeah, well, you just have to think about it. It's so not it's not inconceivable at all that they wouldn't score at 50-1. Slovakia are just so poor going forward. And of course, if you look at who Hungary are up against, and as you said, they'll all be playing when they get to the final match. It's not like any of these teams are going to be up against teams that are going to be resting players necessarily,
not in that group anyway.
Yeah, not in that group exactly. So 50-1, a massive price, and it's good. I always I'm a big fan of tipping up these long shots as well. So it's nice to see that you have a few long shots there. Anyone else there regarding
that was those groups? What group have we not? We obviously have Group D, which is the England group. England, Croatia, Czech Republic, Scotland. Really tough group. To come second or even third in that group. I think they'll take points off each other. Croatia are probably one team which we haven't mentioned, which have on the downhill slope from World Cup and from Euro 16. We've kind of nearly grown up with Modric's group. It's back in Euro 8 when he made his name. They've been brilliant. They still have a good midfield with Modric, Kovacic and Brozovic, Inter Milan, but they've got
Perisic as well.
Perisic there, Rakitic, Mandzukic. These guys have retired, and but they could still get out of the group. But I don't see a threat going past that. Then the last group we have mentioned, Group C, which is the one with Holland. It's probably the worst group. Holland, Austria, Ukraine, and North Macedonia, who have the great Goran Pandev up front. He's 63 next week, I think, but he's still gonna be up there next week. But I was looking for ways of opposing Holland because I said reasons with Van Dijk and Frank de Boer in charge and so on. But it's hard to oppose him properly in that group. It's such a poor group. But one bet I do have in that group, one match bet I do have for the first round of matches is actually next is on the Sunday night. Holland are playing Ukraine. I think Ukraine are a big price at 11-2 to win that match, just a straight win the match, and let's see what happens then after, because I couldn't really find a way of opposing Holland in the group so much, but I might just go at the 11-2 on Ukraine to surprise them on the first night. So I'm going to have 1 point on Ukraine to beat them at 11-2.
And just it just gives a little bit of information about Ukraine. Like, why would you? I know like the main reason you're putting this bit on is you're kind of opposing Netherlands, but like, why do you think Ukraine specifically out of all those teams are the one to maybe do?
Well, I suppose they're playing them first, and they have I suppose they had a good. Now the one thing is Holland, they have their games in Amsterdam, right, to be fair, but Ukraine have Shevchenko's in charge. They won their qualifying group. They topped it with Portugal actually in it. They have the Zinchenko plays midfield, the Man City guy with Malinovsky, who had a great season at Atlanta, who did brilliant in Champions League, and so he's a brilliant player. So they're strong midfield. It's just a case of opposing Holland some way, and I think maybe Ukraine might pull off something on the opening night. I'm not sure what they'll do after that, to be honest, but that is, I'm going to have a point on that, and that's that group. That's that group gone through as well.
Okay, brilliant stuff. So I suppose now I'm looking through the player markets, and obviously the goal scorer market is a very popular market with punters in general. Everyone likes to take a stab at the some, you know, you've got markets like, you know, top goal scorer, but you also have top goal scorer and team to win and all that sort of stuff. But which market regarding the goal scorer market appeals to you in particular?
Yeah, goal scorer markets, are really interesting. I suppose the one I really like is with Powers again. It's one of their power prices, which has a €40 max on it, but that's okay because it's a 10-1 bet actually. It's for Harry Kane to be England's top scorer. It's for Mbappe to be France's top scorer, and Lukaku to be Belgium's top scorer. So 3 big names, obviously. All 3 players guaranteed to play unless they were rested for the third group game, depending on the situation. All 3 are guaranteed to start. Kane will take penalties for England. Mbappe is the French penalty taker. Lukaku has been taking them when Hazard has been injured. Hazard took him before that, so I'm not fully sure which of them would take it, but there's more chance of Lukaku being on the field, I'd say, for the full game than Hazard. So Kane, Mbappe, Lukaku to be top scorers for their countries. So it doesn't even matter how far they even got, that's 10-1. I'm having 2 points on that.
No, I would say what I'd say about that is like Kane seems to be a very prime candidate for that. But are you worried at all about Benzema challenging Mbappe in that market?
Yeah, definitely, because Benzema could. Yeah, he would. I think just that what gives Mbappe a little nod is the fact he's the penalty taker. So you're looking at getting with VAR and so on 1 or 2 penalties in the tournament, and even the way Mbappe wins himself, the way he takes on, and Mbappe is also playing based on the other night when they played Wales. He played up front with him. He wasn't even on the left. They played together with Griezmann behind him. So they played quite narrow with a kind of a diamond. So the fact that even playing actually centrally, I could see
much more likely.
Yeah, much more likely. Yeah.
Of course,
I would agree. He would be the biggest threat to it out of 3. You think Kane, Lukaku will be.
But it's 10-1. Like, it's 10-1.
It's 10-1.
Like, you just look at all those guys. Kane just seems so likely to be the top scorer for England.
Yeah.
Penalty taker and all that. Look, there's no striker really that's challenging Kane in that scenario.
No.
You might have someone like Sterling that might have a day of days, or I don't know, Foden maybe, I don't know, but and then with the Belgium, I suppose if Lukaku takes the penalties, he's the main man up front playing them by himself as well. 10-1 does seem like a great price.
Yeah, I think overall, I think if people want to do one player for it's hard to look past Lukaku. I think we had him for World Cup 18. Just the goals he's got in the last couple of years in Italy, and the fact that he's as you say, he's going to be, he's the focal point of that Belgium team. Who even if you don't think that, if someone thinks they missed their chance a few years ago, they're still on a decent side of the draw. They're in a good group with Russia and Finland. Two teams where they could
there's going to be opportunities to score goals. Massive opportunities to score goals. So, and that's a big part of it.
There's actually one big price. Powers one involving Lukaku to be top scorer, which I have a half point on. Again, go into Powers prices for it. I have a half point on Lukaku being top scorer, France winning the tournament, and actually England getting knocked out in the last 16. So it looks like a treble, but it's actually 66-1. So it's England get knocked out in the last 16, France to win it, as we've said, and Lukaku be top scorer, as we said. So I suppose the nugget in it is,
I'll tell you, that seems like a 66-1 for a reason. I don't know, but why England to get knocked out in the last 16?
Well, the thing is, in England, if England top their group, would you expect them to? They actually, they're Slade Embley. They would be playing France, Germany, or Portugal in the last 16. They're playing the runners-up from that group.
Yes,
so
I get you.
People even though you might think, God, England go out in the last 16, it's a disastrous tournament. Well, they have to prove yet they can beat one of the
big teams,
big teams, and they're going to play them. And that's the thing. So it's possible. It's possible. It's not. It's well possible. So I have a half point on that. Otherwise, the goal scorers, Meg, I've only one other bet and a goal scorer one, and it's a little one again. This with Paddy Power, and again it's a team one where I have we mentioned him already, Ciro Immobile for Italy to be Italy's top scorer. He's scored an unbelievable amount of goals last couple of years, scoring a friendly the other night as well. But Immobile to be Italy's top scorer and Morata to be Spain's top scorer. So Alvaro Morata is going to be up front for Spain. If he starts well in the first game, he will keep his place. The only option for them is Moreno, Villarreal guy, who got 30 goals this season, Gerard Moreno. Yeah. But they have they play Llorente and Ferran Torres, the City guy, either side of him. And if Spain's midfielders aren't goal scorers, Koke, Busquets, Thiago, these guys, they're not goal scorers.
Yes.
And Morata, he's hit or miss, I know, but I think Morata Immobile double on them to be top scorers for Spain, Italy. Doesn't matter how far they go. Is a nice bet with Powers, and it's a 17-2 double.
I like that one.
17-2.
I have to say I like that one. The only one that to me feels a bit ambitious is the England knocked out 16, France win, and Lukaku. But
66-1.
It's 66-1, yeah. But no, look, they look like brilliant bets to me. I'll definitely be following you on those markets as well. Outside of the bets, now that seems that how many staked? That's 11 points staked altogether. That's a solid amount of points staked altogether. Just regarding the tournament, have you any, take the money, take the betting away from it, have you got any preference regarding who will win? If for example France were knocked out and Italy were knocked out and none of your outrights are left, who would you prefer to win?
I'd like to see Ronaldo win as a player as well as a manager.
That's fair
Portugal,
enough,
For Santos as well, the manager, I love him.
Of course, you'd be big. As a United fan, a big Fernandes.
I wouldn't mind seeing a repeat of that final, actually. But sure,
that'd be nice.
Money will talk then. I want France to win.
100%. So. 100%. All right. So look, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to follow your tips. I'm going to have a little punt on Kante, a 20-1 to player of the tournament. Yeah. If France are going to win the tournament, to me, he's clearly
and he's in the media as well.
He's in the media now.
He could even play average
there seems to be something in the air about Kante. All he needs to do we finally need to give this guy the credit he deserves. And if France being so good and they go deep, as which we expect them to do, I mean, of course, someone like Mbappe would be the biggest threat, but to that. But the fact that they play Portugal and Germany, and they're it might not be just a complete goal spree for Mbappe. As you say, he's the most likely to be the top scorer for France. So I just think a good run for France is obviously going to be fueled by someone like Kante, and he might at 20-1. He might get exactly what he deserves, which is the credit that he deserves. So, and also I'm going 4-6, 3 points at 4-6 on Slovakia to finish bottom of that group for the exact same reason you were saying. And I know it's not the strongest group in the world. Sweden's in it, but Sweden generally always kind of
They beat those teams.
They turn up the big, and Poland. Poland are a solid side. Spain as well, isn't it?
Spain,
So Sweden, the likes of Sweden always do kind of turn up for the big tournaments, and they beat, as you say, they beat who they're supposed to beat. So they're my 2 extra little tips there. But so folks, just remember, we'll probably be back. Do you reckon we'll be back for another podcast soon?
Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to the first 2 group games play out, and then there's a little break of a day or two. We'll come back in before the third round, because the third round match betting is always a little bit more potential. There'll be surely 1 or 2 groups where a match really matters, and we might get an angle on corners or cards or something there, and see how the tournament is going. I'll just wrap up again, summarise what we did quickly, Smeg. 3 points in France outright at 5-1. 2 points on Kane, Mbappe and Lukaku to be top scorers for the countries at 10-1. 1 point on Italy outright at 11-1. 1 point on Denmark to reach the semis at 5-1 with Boyles. 1 point on Portugal top their group at 7-2. 1 point double on Immobile and Morata to be top scorers for Italy and Spain at 17-2. 1 point match bet Ukraine to beat Holland at 11-2. And then the 2 I suppose the 2 big prices, a half point on Slovakia and Hungary to be scoreless at 50-1 with Powers, and a half point on that 66-1 shot of England get knocked out in the last 16, France to win the tournament, and Lukaku for top scorer. So that's it for now, Smeg.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Okay, guys, remember to like us on YouTube and to retweet us on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at Mug Podcast. At Mug Podcast, and of course on Mug's Game Podcast is our YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, share it with your WhatsApp friends, and we'll be back shortly again, probably. Well, Wimbledon is coming around the corner too, but the next podcast surely will be when we are in the business end of the European chapters. Thanks again for listening, folks, and we'll chat to you soon.
Bye.